For millennia, the galactic hegemony had ruled with an iron grip. Its influence stretched across the void, its dominion absolute. Hundreds of species had been brought under its banner, some through diplomacy, but most through the raw, undeniable force of conquest. Entire civilizations had crumbled before its relentless expansion, either kneeling in submission or vanishing into the annals of forgotten history. The hegemony's philosophy was simple: strength dictated survival. It had never encountered an opponent capable of defying its will. With fleets larger than some star systems and armies numbering in the trillions, no rebellion had lasted long, no resistance had been successful. Fear was the true weapon of the hegemony, and it had never failed until now. At the heart of the hegemony's conquests stood grand strategist Vorktal, the master of war, the architect of inevitable victory. He had never known defeat. His strategies were studied by generations of hegemony tacticians, his name invoked in hushed whispers across the conquered stars. Vorktal had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. He understood the patterns of resistance, the inevitable breaking points of species pushed beyond their limits. He was methodical, precise. There was no enemy he could not subjugate, no foe he could not crush. And now, his gaze had turned toward a small, primitive world on the fringes of the galaxy, a planet called Earth. The humans were an anomaly, a species with no interstellar presence, no known war fleets, no great galactic influence. They were isolated, a lone ember in the darkness, seemingly unaware of the greater machinations of the cosmos. Their history was violent, their unity questionable at best. Wars had plagued their past. Their own people had turned against one another for centuries. To the hegemony, they were nothing, a mere footnote in history before they even realized they had a place in it. The conquest of Earth would be swift, decisive, a formality more than a campaign. Vorktal barely considered them worth his full attention. A single transmission was sent to Earth, broadcasted in every human language, appearing on every screen, every device. It was cold, efficient, and absolute. Surrender and be assimilated, or be erased from existence. There was no grand declaration of war, no need for it. The hegemony did not ask. It commanded. It had crushed countless worlds this way before. This would be no different. The ultimatum was a mere formality, a courtesy before the inevitable slaughter. The hegemony had learned that the illusion of choice made conquests more efficient. Resistance was futile. Submission was inevitable, or so they believed. Across the galaxy, species that had once resisted and failed watched with pity. They knew the script. The humans would deliberate, attempt diplomacy, and finally bow to the unstoppable force of the hegemony. But Earth remained silent. No surrender, no negotiations, no desperate pleas for mercy. The leaders of humanity sat in dark rooms, their expressions grim, their options limited, the weight of extinction pressed against their chests. There was no precedent, no playbook for such an encounter. They were alone in this, faced with an enemy beyond comprehension. And yet, they did not yield. A mistake the hegemony would come to regret. The hegemony had expected terror, desperate pleas, or perhaps a last-ditch, reckless resistance. Instead, Earth's response was a single notification. You are attempting unauthorized access to a restricted system. Please review the terms and conditions before proceeding. The message appeared across every hegemony war console, from the bridge of their dreadnoughts to the smallest communication relays. Confused officers exchanged glances. The invasion was supposed to be swift, decisive, a textbook conquest. Instead, the hegemony's war engines ground to a halt as their systems were flooded with an unfamiliar directive, labeled Mandatory Friendship Protocols. Fleet Commander Vorktal scowled. This must be a human trick. Override it. A subordinate hesitated. Sir, we need to accept the user agreement first, then accept it. The officer grimaced. It's 800 pages long, sir. Silence fell upon the bridge. War had never looked so tedious. Vorktal had fought dozens of campaigns. He had crushed worlds beneath the hegemony's might, but he had never in all his years faced a battle like this. Every system, every ship, every weapon now required an additional step before executing even the simplest command. Warning, you must read and agree to the Galactic Digital Conduct Guidelines before deploying weapons. Frustrated officers pounded their consoles. Fleet-wide confusion escalated. Missiles refused to launch. Shields powered down unexpectedly. An attempt to override security protocols merely led to another pop-up. Would you like to subscribe to humanity's intergalactic cooperation newsletter? YN, Fleet Commander, we are locked out of our own ships. Verktal's fists clenched. Explain. The officer swallowed. All high-priority systems now require a two-factor authentication process that we do not control. Verktal stared in horror as his command console blinked mockingly. A verification code has been sent to your registered human administrator. Who in the void is our human administrator? Verktal roared. A nearby officer winced. We don't know, sir. The realization settled over them like a suffocating fog. The hegemony had lost control not through force, but through bureaucracy. A desperate attempt was made to bypass the restriction. Surely the missile launchers still worked. Surely raw firepower could break this cycle of administrative madness. Please verify you are not a bot. A series of strange images appeared on every screen. Grainy, distorted photographs of Earth City. The prompt read, select all images containing crosswalks. The officers squinted. One turned to another. What is a crosswalk? An engineer hesitated. Maybe those striped patterns, or is it the large gray paths? They debated. They selected. The screen flashed red. Incorrect. Please try again. Frustrated, Verktal grabbed the nearest console and slammed his fist against it. The images refreshed. Select all images containing bicycles. A moment later, the war room erupted into chaos. The hegemony's largest fleet loomed over Earth, primed for planetary bombardment. It was their last hope. If direct engagement was impossible, perhaps sheer overwhelming force could. Your communication systems have been compromised. Playing The Girl from Ipanema. The smooth, mellow jazz melody poured through every hegemony ship. Bridge officers blinked in confusion. Alarms were drowned under the soothing hum of human leisure music. Verktal's mandibles twitched. Cut the transmission. We can't, sir. It's hardwired into the system now. On screen, the Earth fleet remained motionless. No weapons raised. No defenses engaged. They didn't need to. The hegemony had already lost. Verktal slumped in his command chair. His empire, his fleet, his reputation, all undone by bureaucracy, pop-up windows, and smooth jazz. A single message appeared across the fleet's command screens. Welcome to the human-led Galactic Federation. Your compliance is appreciated. He exhaled sharply. This was not war. This was something worse. This was customer service. And humanity had already won. The bridge of the hegemony's flagship was a whirlwind of panic. Tactical officers barked commands, their eyes darting between flickering readouts and malfunctioning displays. Warships surged into formation, their targeting systems locking onto Earth's orbital defenses. A triumphant smirk curled on Supreme Commander Zorvax's lips. Fire, he ordered. Silence. The targeting display dimmed, the red reticles vanishing. Then a chime, a video overlay expanded across the screen. A cheerful human voice echoed through the bridge. Before you vaporize your enemies, have you considered a better night's sleep? Try Earth's new sleep-enhancing tea, crafted for conquerors and diplomats alike. Zorvax's mandibles clicked in frustration. What is this? A tactical officer swiped furiously at the console. It's an advertisement, sir. It must be watched in full before proceeding. Zorvax's eye twitched as a smiling human held up a steaming cup of tea. This war was becoming unbearable. Hegemony warships across the fleet attempted to fire their weapons. Each attempt triggered a different human advertisement. Want to unleash devastation? First, check out Earth's newest zero-gravity gaming chair. New to orbital bombardment. Learn the secrets of strategic warfare with our online masterclass. Tactical officers screamed in frustration. Battle-hardened warriors found themselves forced to endure jingles and sales pitches before they could press a single attack. On the command deck of the warship Dread Omen, Admiral Kroltak slammed a fist onto his console. Why can't we skip these? A weary officer shook his head. Sir, they don't have a skip button. The bridge fell silent in horror. Desperate to break through, the hegemony activated planetary siege weapons. Great artillery stations powered up across occupied worlds. A chime sound, system update in progress. A progress bar blinked on every display. Officers gawked at their consoles as the percentage refused to move. Then, after several agonizing minutes, it ticked up to 1. Zorvax's patience snapped. Override the update. The ship's AI responded coldly. Manual override disabled during updates. Estimated time remaining 14 hours. The Admiral clutched his temples. The humans had managed to turn their entire war machine into a bureaucratic nightmare. On the bridge of the Ravager's Claw, Commander Velrax prepared a last-ditch assault. He raised a trembling claw. All batteries fire. Nothing happened. A soft ping resonated from the control panel. A text box appeared. Error command not authorized. Please say please to proceed. Velrax's mandibles clicked in irritation. Fire the damn cannons. Error command not authorized. Please say please. The commander growled. His officers stared. The tension on the bridge was suffocating. Fire the damn cannons, please. A soft chime. The weapons powered up. Velrax buried his face in his claws. Across the Empire, Hegemony screens flickered. Every planetary display, every starship console hijacked. A calm human voice spoke, introducing the human quantum drive. FTL like you've never imagined. Scientific advisors gasped as schematics flashed across their monitors. Their species had spent centuries developing primitive hyperdrives, and now, in a single moment, humans casually presented a system that outclassed their entire civilization. A Hegemony scientist whispered in horror. They solved it, and they're selling it? The propaganda broadcast continued. Humans did not conquer with warships, nor did they crush opposition with weapons. They shattered empires with relentless bureaucracy, automated advertisements, and impossible technology that they casually marketed like consumer goods. Hegemony officers sat in stunned silence, watching yet another infomercial flood their screens. For the first time in history, the Hegemony began to question everything. Maybe, just maybe, they were the primitives all along. Scene opens in the Hegemony War Council chamber, an imposing hall of steel and shadow. The air is thick with tension. Vertal, clad in the regal armor of the Grand Strategist, stands before the High Council. His voice is sharp, unwavering. Vertal, we have suffered indignities beyond measure. The humans mock us with their absurd trickery. We are the Hegemony. We do not bow to primitive. We strike now with everything. The High Council murmurs in agreement, though their eyes betray unease. One among them, a frail but wise elder, hesitates. Elder Counselor, their ways are unpredictable, perhaps. Vertal cutting in. Perhaps nothing. No more games, no more digital absurdities. We end this now. The chamber erupts into cheers. The command is given. The mightiest fleet in Hegemony history mobilizes, engines igniting the void with a terrible glow. The fleet hurtles through space, a vanguard of doom. Admiral Krell watches the data streams with grim anticipation. He expects the usual chaos, malfunctions, unwanted advertisements, security barriers. Instead, nothing. The command deck is eerily quiet. Orders process instantly. Ships move without resistance. No corrupted files. No sudden updates. Krell whispering. It's working. A cold sensation grips his gut. This is too easy, too smooth. Vertal's voice crackles through the comms. Vertal, press forward, show no hesitation. We take their world today. Yet the unease remain. A creeping dread, silent and unseen, coils around the fleet like a predator in the dark. The Hegemony's war machine fires its opening salvo. Turrets swivel, energy cannons discharge, troop carriers descend. No glitches, no warning prompts, no license agreements. Commander Rylan, weapons firing instantly, no biometric confirmation, no 16-step authentication. Admiral Krell clenches his fists. He had expected resistance, obstacles, but there is nothing. Krell, something is wrong. The realization spreads like a sickness. The enemy has done nothing to stop them, and that terrifies them more than any trick ever could. The first hesitations ripple through the fleet. An officer hovers over a console waiting for an approval code that never appeared. A squad of soldiers remains frozen at a docking bay, awaiting deployment orders that never get interrupted. Lieutenant Jen, sir, the system isn't asking for confirmation. Do we proceed? General Thrax. Of course we proceed. Attack, damn you. Yet no one moved. They have never seen such efficiency before. Without the obstacles they are used to, they cannot function. The fleet slows, not because of enemy resistance, but because of its own soldiers, unable to process the unnatural ease of their actions. The great Hegemony faltered. A silent fear grips every officer, every soldier, every strategist. For eons they had been trained to navigate bureaucracy, to push through digital barriers, to strategize around inefficiencies. Now, with nothing in their way, they are powerless. Commander Rylan, whispering, shaken. They've done it. They've broken us without firing a shot. A junior officer collapses, eyes wide with existential dread. Troop transports remain docked, their soldiers paralyzed. The enemy has done nothing, and yet the Hegemony is unraveling from within. Vertal watches in horror from the command bridge. Vertal, attack, you cowards, engage the enemy. No one obeys. Some officers abandon their posts, others shut down their ships out of sheer terror. Entire fleets self-destruct, unwilling to face the abyss of an unstructured battle. The great and terrible hegemony crumbles, not in a blaze of glory, but in the silence of its own obsolescence. Humanity never needed to fight. They only had to do one thing: remove the obstacles. And in doing so, they shattered an empire. The hegemony, battered and humiliated, convened in their war chambers. The once mighty conquerors, who had sought to break humanity, now found themselves scrambling to draft a surrender that would not shatter what remained of their dignity. Grand strategist Vertal loomed over the central holo display, his mandibles twitching in frustration. "We cannot call it surrender," he snarled. "The council will not accept that." Minister Zelzal, his appendages trembling, tapped at his console. "Then we must reframe it. Not surrender, an alliance." The room fell silent. An alliance. The very word was an insult to their war-hardened pride. But the alternative, true defeat, was far worse. A draft was hastily constructed. Under the newly formed Mandatory Friendship Initiative, the hegemony would not be absorbed, but integrated into a mutually beneficial cooperative structure. The language was painstakingly crafted to imply unity rather than subjugation. Humanity responded almost immediately, their message painfully chipper. "Welcome, new partners. We're thrilled to embark on this journey of mutual cooperation. Together, we'll create a better, brighter galaxy." There was no mockery in the tone, no overt gloating, and somehow that made it even worse. The hegemony had lost, and now they were part of something far more insidious than war. Integration began swiftly. Humanity, in its infinite wisdom, did not impose military rule. No occupation fleets, no armed patrol. Instead, they brought something far more terrifying. Paperwork, compliance forms, efficiency quotas, interstellar work permits, terms alien to the hegemony's warrior caste, now dictated their daily existence. Battleships once designed for conquest now carried cargo manifests and environmental impact assessments. Vertal's claws trembled as he read the latest directive. "We must schedule planetary invasions 4 weeks in advance." He turned to his adjutant, incredulous. "There is a processing fee." The human diplomat across the table nodded with a pleasant smile. "Of course. Streamlining resource allocation is key to a harmonious galactic structure." Hegemony generals, who had once commanded legions, now sat in cramped offices, struggling to understand budget approvals and insurance liabilities. It was a level of warfare they had never encountered, and they were losing. Months passed. The final transmission from Earth arrived, marking the official completion of the hegemony's integration. The broadcast opened with a jubilant fanfare. "Congratulations, you are now fully integrated into the friendship program." The hegemony's high council sat in stunned silence. The message continued with an unsettlingly cheerful tone. "As part of our ongoing commitment to mutual prosperity, you will now enjoy the full benefits of our standardized intergalactic governance. Your fleets have been assigned new trade routes. Your military has been successfully repurposed for planetary logistics, and your leadership is officially recognized as valued regional administrators." Vertal slumped back in his chair. The entire war effort had led to this, being valued administrators in someone else's empire. One of his officers whispered, "Should we celebrate?" Nobody had an answer. The rest of the galaxy watched the hegemony's fall with rapt attention. The most feared military power in known space had not been annihilated. They had not been enslaved. They had been assimilated. Seeing no other option, other species rapidly fell in line. One by one, empires signed trade agreements. Civilizations willingly subjected themselves to humanity's endless bureaucracy rather than risk the alternative. The galaxy, once filled with war and chaos, now found itself bound by an inescapable force. Customer service. And so, without a single shot fired in final victory, humanity became the de facto rulers of the stars. Not with war, but with efficiency. Their reign was absolute, and it had terms and conditions. The galactic hegemony, once the most feared and ruthless force in the known universe, had been brought to its knees, not through superior firepower but through efficiency. Under humanity's structured rule, chaos turned to order. The hegemony was no longer a brutal war machine but a valued partner in the newly established United Galactic Community. Gone were the days of conquest and domination. Now former warlords attended mandatory human-led leadership workshops with titles like Empathy and Efficiency, A Balanced Approach, and Intergalactic Diplomacy 101, How to Win Hearts, Not Battles. Tigrash, the unyielding, once known for reducing entire planets to ash, now sat in a well-lit conference room, awkwardly raising a clawed hand. "Ah, what exactly is a trust fall?" he asked, glancing at his fellow former conqueror. Humanity had won. not with plasma cannons but with PowerPoint presentations. Across the galaxy, whispers spread like wildfire. The hegemony's fall had not been orchestrated by a grand tactician or a military genius. No, the true mastermind behind humanity's psychological warfare was far more terrifying. It was a former customer service agent. The realization sent shivers through the ranks of alien leaders. They spoke of a singular force, honed through years of patience and frustration. A being who had faced the worst bureaucracy humanity had to offer and survived. Their resilience, murmured High General Kravlok, was forged in the fires of corporate call centers. The mere thought of battling against someone who had endured the dreaded phrase, "Let me transfer you to another department," was enough to make entire fleets surrender preemptively. The galaxy trembled, knowing it had been bested not by soldiers but by people who once had to explain, repeatedly, that yes, the router was plugged in. Verktal, once the hegemony's most brilliant war strategist, had spent decades orchestrating battles, devising flawless invasions and outmaneuvering the greatest minds in the galaxy. Now he faced his greatest and final challenge, a human-run space cafe. He had come seeking solace, a place to reflect on his failures. Instead, he was handed a feedback survey by a smiling human employee. The paper felt heavier than any battle report he had ever held. He stared at the question, "Do you feel valued as a friend?" For a long time he hesitated. He had spent his life believing in dominance, in conquest, and yet as he looked around at the calm chatter, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the sight of former enemies laughing over pastries, he realized humanity had done the impossible. With a weary sigh, he picked up the pen and checked yes, the galaxy had changed forever. Not through war but through structure. Humanity had not just won, they had organized the universe into compliance. As Verktal walked away from the cafe, he finally understood. Resistance had never been an option. The bureaucracy had already won.